Good evening, everyone. 2009 Honda CR-V. We're going to be doing the Lamto DC21 4-channel dash cam with the front and rear, along with two sides inside or interior view. I'm going to show you what that looks like. Let's get to it. We're going to go ahead and show you what it comes with. It's going to come in this very nice package box. It does have foam inside, so it stays protected during shipment. Here's the actual camera itself. As you can see, it has a screen so you can view the videos if you need to. Also got this telescoping side cameras right here along with the front, so that's pretty cool. Got the rear camera. Now you have two options of powering this up. You can either do a hardwired or a cigarette lighter connection. Now this method is the easiest. As you can see, it just plugs into the cigarette lighter, out of sight, out of mind, and that's done. This one's a little bit more involved, since you do have to run this to the headliner, kind of hide all the wires, and it does get tapped in to the fuse box. In this one, we're going to be doing this method right here, just because I'm not a fan of showing any of these, just kind of dangling around. But nice thing is they did give a panel popper, so it's plastic. You don't want to use any metal, that way you don't damage the glass, headliner, and things like that. Got the manual. You do get a secondary base. This one already have it, so it just sticks on just in case you do want to transfer to a different vehicle. It does come with the sticky things, double-sided tape as a backup for the dash video rear one, so that's nice to have. So I'm gonna give that to the customer just in case. So I'm gonna take you on a little quick install and then show you how this thing gets wired up. First up in this install is we are going to run the power wire for the hard wire. As you can see, I pulled this off and route it right there. Now just kind of let it dangle. We don't really need it that long anyway, so we're going to go ahead and route it along this channel. Turn right here, and then it's going to come out just right beside here. And you also don't want to install the camera yet. We're going to do that last. That way we can power it up, make adjustments to make sure it's all straight. So that's going to be the very last part. For every dash cam that I do that's not designed for the vehicle, so it's practically universal, which applies to every other install, is I basically do this method right here. And that way whenever you curve it, it's going to look just like that, not too tight. And I also use Tessa tape, since it's going to be a little bit visible, just to kind of blend it in a little bit. This is not the absolute only way to do it, but this is just how I do it. So, I mean, you don't have to really put Tessa tape if you don't have one. You can use zip ties, electrical tape, anything that you can do to kind of make it look as OEM or clean look as it gets. But like I said, I went all the way just about right there, just because I need to run the rear camera towards the back from the headliner, and then the power going towards the fuse box. We've got the two wires. One of them is power and one of them is for the backup camera or rear view camera. This is the hardest part. You want to tuck it in kind of inside, so just use your panel remover that comes with it. I have various ones that I use. I like using one of these. They're pretty cheap, but you want it to come out right here. So the dash rear is going to be routed along towards the back, and the power obviously goes towards below. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, but make sure you pull the rubber seal right here, and then make sure it's tucked in inside this channel right here. And then we're going to go ahead and run the back one as well. Here's where we are so far. Now be mindful when you run it to like these corners, make sure it's not being pinched whenever you put the rubber seal. This is kind of where we are so far, since we need to go to the back. But for now, I got everything ran right here, so we can go ahead and put the rubber seal back. Make sure no wires are getting pinched. Now we can move on to running the rest all the way to the back. Got the rear side done up. Now we're going to go ahead and continue running it, coming out all the way right here. And then we have to run it inside the trunk hatch itself. When you get to the back area, we're going to be running it, or try to run it in here. Once you get to the corner right here, now you're going to notice right about in this area, there's supposed to be an open hole right there. Let me see if I can get it to zoom in. Right there. I added a grommet in there. I actually did a backup camera with this vehicle as well, so I'm kind of killing two birds with one stone. So, but I don't want the wires rubbing on a sharp hole, as I don't want it getting cut. So now the wire is going to come out right here. Pop this off, and then we're going to attempt to fish the wire all the way inside here, and then possibly come out like around this area. So hopefully it works. For this part, you're going to need a coat hanger. You're going to carefully insert it to the grommet. Now when it doesn't want to go in, things like that, you just kind of want to twist it around, move the grommet a little bit just to make it go easier. You don't want to keep pushing it, as it might nick some of the wires. So in this case, it took me about, I don't know, 2 minutes to get it kind of maneuvered around, spin around. Then we're going to go ahead and feed this plug right here. Now I already have one fed in there, as like I said, I did the backup camera. So hopefully I can get this thing to go in. That way I can mount it around this area. What I find it make it easier for it to kind of slide through. As you can see, I got it taped up. Spray a little bit of a WD-40 or anything that's a lubricant type. That way it'll just kind of slide in inside and not bind up, because you definitely don't want this thing binding up inside that. In this case, it went in pretty smooth. Like I said, I sprayed a little bit of WD-40. So that one took about, I don't know, a couple of seconds, and it was already in. So now we're going to go ahead and rod it in this area. That way we can button this up. This is probably the hardest part when it comes to things like these, but other than that, it doesn't really apply to trucks, as the truck pretty much don't have a trunk like this. Sedans, they're not too bad as well, but in this case, these ones are always kind of a pain. In this case, we're going to go ahead and add a grommet, since it's going to be going to this hole right here. And as you can see, the factory one's grommeted, so we're going to do the same exact thing. Like I said, it needs to come out right here. To get all these plastic off, you're going to need to remove this. The two sides, they're just a bunch of clips, no screws. This one has to come off first, and then the two sides come off. That way you can run the wire to this location. First thing that comes off is this panel right here. Nothing but clips. Pop that off. Use your plastic panel remover. These two also pops off. Nothing but clips. 2 clips. And that's it. That way you'll be able to run the grommet right here and have access to all of these. Got all the wiring situated, zip tied. You don't really want anything like that loose or anything like that. Like I said, this is just specific for the CRV. You can install this in any vehicle, truck, RV, things like that. But in this case, I had to drill a small hole. That way the wire has to go through, because you don't really want to rod it behind here, as when you close it, it'll mate up with this and pinch the wire. And I don't really like stuff like that, so went the extra mile, did it this way, as this is the proper way. Now the wiring harness that comes with it is going to have these fuses right here, but we're not going to be using that, as it takes these little mini fuses. So you're going to have to get a type of fuse designated to your fuse box, or the fuses that takes in your vehicle. Now we're going to be using the right rear power window that gets power whenever the key is on, so that's what we're going to use. So we're going to go ahead and cut a little bit of this. That way it's not super long. Don't really need it to be super long. Probably about right here. And then we're going to put a new ring terminal, tap it into ground and power. We're going to go ahead and use that stock ground right there. Now when you have to tap a fuse like these are not just kind of whatever you think it'll fit. What you have to find out is which side of the prong gets power whenever you turn the key on. In this case, the top portion is the one that supplies the power, goes through the fuse, and provides power to the power window. Now when you put the fuse in, this is how it's going to be right here. This is the one that's going to get the power, and then it's going to flow through to these fuses and provide power. Now in an event there's a short, you want it to be that way it'll pop the fuse the way it should. So I'm going to go ahead and put it the way it should, and that's that. There's two ways to wire this up. Now the way I have it wired is the 12 volt constant and the accessory are wired together. That way the camera is only going to turn on whenever the key is on. If you wanted parking mode, you had to hook up the yellow to a 12 volt constant and the red wire to an accessory that only gets power whenever you turn the key. But in this case, I always just prefer it this way, just to prevent from kind of depleting a little bit of the juice power of the battery. Since we do get cold weathers here in Kansas, every little juice counts anytime you want to try to start the vehicle. So go ahead and test it real quick. Got everything zip tied together, that way it's all secured. The fuse is good. Now we get to move on and getting ready to stick on the cameras to where they need to be. Before you stick it in, make sure you use a alcohol wipe. Clean the surface a little bit, that way it has a maximum sticky surface. So use your one of these or just a normal alcohol with a little towel. So I'm going to go ahead and clean that and then mount this up. Here's mounted the back camera. As you can see, that hole makes it a lot better looking than just a plain hole. Got it all sticked on. I'm going to go ahead and adjust it to point a little bit more high. Here's what the camera looks like. I do have the screensaver at 1 minute, so it'll shut down the screen. That way it's not obstructing the vision at nighttime. As you can see, everything is straight. Everything is done. Like I said, this thing swivels, which is a cool thing, so you can position it however you want. So I'm going to let the customer or the owner deal with that. But besides that, everything is done. Everything is complete. Shout out to Lamto for sending me this 4channel. I highly suggest you getting one of these. I did get an accident probably about a month and a half ago, and without my dash cam, I would have been so much hassle with the insurance. So dash cams are always a must in today's day. Everybody wants to lie on who's at fault. The dash cam proves otherwise. So other than that, Lamto, thank you for sending me one. Other than that, that's all there is to it. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. I'll attach the link to the description down there. Go ahead and order your one and let me know how it goes. Here's the dash cam from the outside view. Looks pretty neat. Like I said, shout out to Lamto for sending me one. Another feature that the dashcam have, you can actually open and download a app. That way you can see all the videos that's been downloaded and recorded. This is a pretty detailed guide for you. Pretty straightforward. Now you can access it normal via the screen, so you can view whatever is recorded. It also has an SD card, but if you want to view it from your phone, you do have to download this app right here and just obviously follow the simple instructions. You do have to connect it to the Wi-Fi directly to that. That way it'll only pick up the camera itself and then show you all the videos that's been recorded for whatever purpose you need it for.